Sophia's male best friend has never had any sense of boundaries and always treats crude jokes as sincerity. At my mother-in-law's funeral, he suddenly walked up to my dad and mockingly sighed, "Uncle George, condolences. Although Auntie used to fool around with other dance partners and cuckolded you, she's dead now, so let it go." When the words fell, every relative's gaze froze instantly. "No, you're mistaken. This isn't." I was about to explain that the deceased was my mother-in-law, not my mother, but before I could finish I was interrupted. My dad was even more bewildered. He tried hard to explain, but no one believed him, so furious that he suffered a heart attack and died on the spot. Seeing that someone had died, Sophia's male best friend reluctantly apologized. "I was just joking. Who could have known his father was so old he couldn't tell?" Sophia chimed in beside him. "Lucas isn't entirely lying. Your mom's in her 50s, always away from home dancing around. There's definitely something going on." I couldn't take it. I picked up a fruit knife to clear my mother's name in front of Sophia's male friend. In the struggle, the knife stabbed my heart. When I opened my eyes again, I decided to make Sophia really taste how funny her male friend's jokes were. A sharp phone ring jolted me awake. I instinctively grabbed my phone and heard the voice on the other end. "Hello, is this Margaret's family? She had an accidental drowning this afternoon and died. Please come to Lakeside City Hospital immediately." I snapped back to reality. I had been reborn? Reborn to the day my mother-in-law died. In my last life, when I first learned of my mother-in-law's death, I immediately contacted my wife, Sophia, who was on a business trip, but I couldn't reach her at all. With no choice, I left her a message. "Mom died. Come back quickly." Later, I found out Sophia had been under the impression that it was my mother who died, which is why she came so late. Last time, after the funeral ceremony began, Sophia's male friend Lucas suddenly blurted to my dad, "Uncle George, condolences. Even though Annie cheated on you while she was alive, she's dead now and can't be brought back, so let it go." I was utterly stunned, thinking I'd misheard. But Lucas kept going on his own. "I heard Annie liked to go dancing." "Hey, Uncle George, you should have stopped her earlier. She was only 50 and still attractive. It's sad for you. You didn't even know she had betrayed you. I'm just telling you the truth because I feel for you and don't want you left in the dark." Then he solemnly pulled out some photos taken at who knows when and continued to verbally insult my mother-in-law. He spoke so specifically that the relatives present began whispering and discussing it. I tried to explain that the deceased was my mother-in-law, not my mom, but Lucas cut me off. "Brother-in-law Ethan, I know you must be in pain and can't accept this, but Uncle George is even more hurt. Comfort him properly." My vision went dark. I realized how painful it was to be falsely accused and unable to prove your innocence. My dad couldn't stand it. He argued with everyone right then, but he was gentle and not used to fighting. Faced with people's accusations, he couldn't defend himself and suddenly suffered a heart attack and died. Meanwhile, during my dispute with Sophia's male friend Lucas, I was stabbed in the heart with a fruit knife. Thinking of all that suffering from my last life, I bit my lip hard. Since they didn't know the deceased was my mother-in-law, this time I would play an even bigger joke. 3 days later, Sophia arrived at the funeral with Lucas in tow, unhurried as ever. Lucas arrived in an incongruous floral shirt and sunglasses, making a flamboyant entrance. "Sorry, Ethan, Sophia, and I just got back from a business trip. We rushed straight from the high-speed train and didn't have time to change." He mouthed apologies, but his eyes were full of undisguised pride and provocation. "You've been working hard handling everything by yourself these past 2 days. Even with something this big happening, Sophia couldn't stay by your side." "It's my fault," he continued. "I could have come back a day earlier, but I suddenly ran a high fever. Sophia was worried and stayed to take care of me overnight." I snorted inwardly. In the last life, I only learned after death that Sophia's so-called emergency trip was really just time off taken to accompany Lucas on a trip to Harbor City. Her mother had just died, yet she could still go out partying with another man. What great filial devotion. Thinking this made me choke down my rising disgust and meet Lucas's taunting gaze with a cold voice. "It's fine. I don't think Mom would mind. After all, the one who'd wronged her was her own daughter, not me. For some reason, hearing that made Sophia inexplicably uneasy. She frowned slightly and looked at me as if trying to read something on my face, but I pretended not to notice and turned my eyes away. When the funeral formally began, Sophia should have stood with me in the family section and bowed to thank each guest who came to pay respects. I looked for her for a long time before finding her and Lucas hiding behind the hall, chatting. They talked and laughed with not the slightest respect for the deceased. There wasn't a trace of grief on Sophia's face. Even if the deceased had been someone she knew, she shouldn't be so rude. I clenched my fists and forced myself not to rush over. In the previous life, my mother-in-law treated me like her own son and defended me at every turn. So after she died, I took charge of the arrangements on behalf of Sophia to give her a dignified send-off. I reminded myself to put the bigger picture first and set aside personal feelings and grievances. But the calm was short-lived. When it was time for relatives and friends to bow and say their final goodbyes, my father, forcing himself through his grief, stepped forward. At that moment, Lucas, appearing from who knew where, suddenly shouted to everyone, "Hey, Uncle George, you've had it rough. Wearing that giant green hat because of Andy, and you're still so devoted, organizing her funeral." My father stiffened and his face went pale. Lucas, as if unaware, went on, "We didn't know, did you? The place Annie used to go to dance is the same studio I often go to. I've seen her with a few old men, hugging and holding each other, getting really close. After dancing, they'd chat and laugh and head off toward a small hotel. I snapped my head up and barked, 'Lucas, this is a funeral, not a place for your jokes. Watch your mouth.' Lucas smiled and turned to Sophia. 'I'm not the type to joke around, right, Sophia?' Sophia nodded without hesitation and, a second later, scolded me coldly. 'Ethan, calm down. Lucas isn't someone who spouts nonsense. Maybe he just saw something and spoke bluntly.' As soon as she said that, the relatives who had been holding back changed their expressions. Murmurs turned into convinced whispers and pointed fingers. After all, when the deceased's reputation was being sullied and no one denied it, whatever was said must be true. What they didn't know was that Lucas made a habit of treating crude jokes as his true nature. He took the greatest pleasure in using vulgar jokes in any setting to embarrass people he disliked, especially by inventing lurid rumors. I still remember the first time I went with Sophia to have dinner with Lucas and those guy friends. Sophia, not bad. Finally willing to bring your boyfriend out to meet the brothers? You kept him hidden pretty well before, huh? His gaze turned to me, sizing me up from head to toe. Then he suddenly frowned. Hey, wait, does Ethan brother-in-law look familiar to anyone? The next second he slapped Sophia's thigh and raised his voice. I remember now. Last summer at Stellar Club, they had that famous top male model. Wasn't that you? You know, the one who dresses skimpy, shows his abs, and cozies up to my rich aunts to play dice like he's having a blast. Yeah, it's definitely you. My face flushed instantly, blood rushing to my head. But because he was Sophia's male friend, I held myself back from snapping. You've got the wrong person, right? I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. He paused for several seconds, savoring the curious and probing looks from everyone at the table, then suddenly put on an expression like he'd let something slip. Ah, damn my mouth. I'm drunk. I must be mistaken. Definitely mistaken. But his flimsy denial didn't convince anyone. If anything, it made them more suspicious. Sophia's face went cold, and she asked me quietly, "You've never been to a place like that, have you?" I felt like I'd fallen into an ice pit. All the blood in my body froze. She would rather believe her male friend's baseless rambling than the man she lives with. I'm not feeling well. I'm going to leave, I said and made to go, but Lucas blocked me. Hey, don't go, Ethan brother-in-law. I was just joking. Why are you taking it so seriously? Fine, I'll punish myself with a drink. Happy now. With that, he casually picked up the cup Sophia had just been drinking from and took a big gulp. But instead of getting angry, Sophia gave him a look that said, "What can you do with him? indulging him, drinking my wine again. The two of them bantered and laughed, completely forgetting me, sitting there pale and cold. After a while, Lucas came over with his cup to apologize. Sorry earlier. Actually, I wanted to compliment you on being handsome and having a great body. It's easy to lose control around you. Before I could respond, he turned to Sophia and the others. All right. To show my apology and to prove there's nothing going on between you two, let's play a little prank on Sophia. What do you say? Alarm bells rang in my head. I was about to refuse when he'd already grabbed my phone, opened the pinned WeChat contact, and typed with a smirk. Let's enter a message that says, "Baby, the doctor says I can't have sex for a while. What should I do?" And see how she reacts. When she panics, we'll tell her it's a joke. Huh, what fun to give her a scare. I froze because no sooner had he sent it than Sophia's reply came through. How is that possible? We haven't been sleeping together much lately. Lucas read that response out loud. The private room fell into a deathly silence, then erupted into loud, raucous laughter. Lucas walked up to me, looked me up and down, and said, "So Ethan brother-in-law's been sleeping alone lately. Must be rough, huh?" My mind went blank. An overwhelming shame swallowed me. I shoved my chair back and stood to leave, only to run into Sophia, who had hurried back after seeing the messages. What was that message just now? Did you really go out and be a male model behind my back? She asked, her tone full of suspicion and displeasure. Hearing that, Lucas and his buddies laughed even harder. I could see that moment I was mortified and ashamed. I never attended any of their gatherings again. Thinking that, I glanced coldly at Lucas beside me. You say you saw my mom fooling around with another man, cheating on my dad. Were you joking or were you serious? Many present were mutual friends of Sophia and Lucas and knew Lucas's joking nature. So they chimed in, "Yeah, Lucas, you can't joke about the deceased. That's very disrespectful." But instead of sobering up, Lucas grew even angrier, determined to prove himself. "You all know what kind of person I am. I say it like it is. Sophia knows me best." My father's face instantly went ugly. He sensed there was more between Lucas and his daughter-in-law, Sophia. "Sophia, you say something. What does your friend mean?" Sophia's expression turned awkward, but even so she chose to stand with Lucas. "George, Dad, what Mom did must have been painful for you. But she's dead now. Let it go." My father turned furious, red in the face. "Bastard, what nonsense are you talking? Do you know?" I immediately cut him off. In a last life, he had insisted on explaining to everyone, but nobody believed him. He couldn't staunch the gossip alone, and, amid the ridicule and pointing of friends and family, he had become so enraged he suffered a fatal cerebral hemorrhage on the spot. This time I had to protect my father. "Since Lucas is so sure, then tell me, did you see it with your own eyes? Any evidence? Did anyone else see it?" Lucas snorted, took out his phone. "Of course there's proof. I took photos back then, I just didn't have the nerve to say it. Since you don't believe me, look." At that, others all looked over. He curled his lip in a sneer. "Well, seen enough." I looked at the few photos he swiped through and exchanged a glance with my father and couldn't help laughing. Seeing that we weren't angry, but laughing, Lucas got even angrier and spat. "Are you and your dad insane? Your mom cheated and you're able to laugh about it." I nodded, "Yeah." Sophia looked at me puzzled. "Are Lucas's photos real?" I nodded heavily. "They're real." In an instant the room fell silent. The next moment an intense discussion erupted. If it's real, oh my God, the son admitted his mother cheated. At that, a trace of guilt vanished from Lucas's face, and he smugly raised an eyebrow at me. "See, I told you I wasn't joking," he said, addressing Sophia. Sophia could only shake her head helplessly. "Ethan, I didn't expect your mom to be that kind of person." I snorted inwardly. She actually had the gall to make that face. Then I turned to Lucas and asked the question I've been holding back. "Are you sure it was my mom who cheated?" Lucas gave me a look that said, "Are you crazy?" but still laughed as he nodded. "Weren't you just confirming in the photos that it was your mom?" I nodded, then spoke slowly. "Everyone, the photos are of my mom. That's true, but..." I looked at Sophia, who was now staring at me with utter disgust. The person in that coffin is my mother-in-law. The moment I finished, the room descended into a deathly silence. Sophia was the first to rush up to me, grabbing my shoulder and shouting, "Ethan, what nonsense are you talking about?" Seeing the panic on her face now, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Sophia, how come you're only finding out now that the one in the coffin is your mother?" Her breath hitched, and her face went instantly pale. She knew in her heart that I was different from Lucas. I don't joke, and I would never make a joke about something like this. That meant this was really true. Thinking that, she drew a cold breath for no reason and forced herself to walk to the coffin, trying to keep calm. Just as she was about to open it, I suddenly shouted, "Sophia!" Raising the coffin is a big taboo. Sophia's face drained of color. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. If her mother had any spirit watching from above, knowing that her daughter not only didn't hurry back when she died, but was now going to raise the coffin to check, she'd surely be furious. At my words, Sophia stopped dead. She spun to look at me, her eyes bloodshot, and screamed, "Ethan, how dare you make such a joke? You cursed my mom to death." I curled my lip in a cold smile. Leaving aside whether it's a joke, even if the one in this coffin is my mother, how could you let your male best friend humiliate my mother's honor like that? Hearing this, Lucas, who had been very frightened a moment ago, suddenly found courage. He became convinced I was joking, frowned, and put on an air as he coldly scolded me. "Ethan, how can you be so vicious to curse Sophia's mom like that? Didn't you just admit those photos showed your mom? Doesn't that prove she cheated?" His words made me tremble with anger. Even now, he couldn't stop throwing dirt on my mother. Summoning all my strength, I slapped him. His right cheek puffed up immediately. He stared at me in disbelief. "You dared hit me?" He lunged forward, but was held back by a few brothers beside him. Okay, this is someone's mother's funeral. You're being rude." Even friends who usually hung out with them couldn't stand it. Other relatives chimed in, "Yeah, young man, your mouth is too vicious, that's not right." "Exactly, it didn't offend you. Why say that at a funeral? Be careful someone comes after you tonight." I smirked coldly and, truthfully, looked forward to his mother coming after him that night. Lucas's face flushed red then white. "What nonsense are you talking? You all heard him earlier too. He confirmed the person in the photos is his mother." Right then, I knew there was no point continuing the charade with him. So I looked at everyone and said coolly, "Yes, the person in the photos is my mother." At that, his face lit up with triumph. Then I added, "But the man in those photos is my father." Everyone froze and turned to look at my father. My father, whom I'd been holding back from speaking, finally exhaled. He looked at Lucas with a cold face. "Young man, you must be responsible for your words." Now everyone understood. The photos were real. Not evidence of infidelity, but of a loving couple. After my mother retired, she became passionate about dancing. But she thought the old men in the dance hall could not compare to my father. So she nagged him until he agreed to dance with her. My father, an old-fashioned man, was embarrassed for people to know he danced. Every time he went to the studio, he would deliberately dress up so people wouldn't recognize him. That's why Lucas failed to recognize him. Yet, because of that one thing he never bothered to verify, his casual joke set off a chain of events that destroyed our whole family. In my previous life, because of his elaborate, seemingly well-evidenced framing, my father was so enraged that he suddenly suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and died on the spot. While I was arguing with him, I was stabbed in the heart. My mother came home afterward, was so grief-stricken she fell seriously ill, and she soon died as well. Just thinking about it makes my teeth itch with anger. At that moment, one of Sophia's brothers burst in from outside in a panic. "Sophia, something terrible happened." Sophia jerked her head up and instinctively looked at me. She suddenly realized that something truly bad had happened. I asked the staff here, "The funeral today is indeed your mom's." Her brother's words froze Sophia in place. The next second, she collapsed to the ground, unable to speak. After a long while, she let out a belated wail. "Mom!" I watched her coldly and turned to leave. "Sophia, my condolences." Lucas hurried forward to try to support Sophia when he saw me depart, but she pushed him away in disgust. Get lost. I don't want to see you again. Lucas was stunned. He hadn't expected Sophia, who was always good-natured toward him, to suddenly change. W, what are you talking about? I didn't know it was your mom. He was flustered, his face completely lacking any arrogance. But Sophia wouldn't listen to his explanations and shouted at him. It's all your fault. How dare you act so brazen at my mom's funeral, causing so much trouble, making everyone come and mock me. Faced with Sophia's repeated accusations, Lucas opened his mouth to explain but couldn't get a word out, because she was right. From deliberately wearing the wrong clothes, to pulling her aside laughing and chatting, to making an ill-timed joke that drew everyone's attention, he had indeed messed up at every step. But none of this was supposed to be like this. Suddenly he shot a glare at me, vicious. You did this on purpose? Though he asked it like a question, his tone was one of certainty. I didn't hide it, yes. He roared, why would you do this to me? I snorted coldly. Have you forgotten? You started all of this just now, didn't you? Lucas stared at me intently. How could he forget? But he would never admit that this had anything to do with him. Realizing that it was her own mother who had died, Sophia was racked with remorse. She knelt before her mother-in-law's coffin and struck her head on the ground hard. Mom, I'm sorry, I'm late. With every sentence, she hit her head again. Before long, her forehead began to bleed. Seeing this, others stepped forward to restrain her, but she shoved them off. Let go of me. I want to kowtow. I watched all of it indifferently. I believed the guilt in her eyes was real now. But it chilled me further because at the start she had mistaken the dead woman for my mother and felt no sorrow at all. She even indulged her male best friend as he insulted my mother in every way, and she never stood up to say a single word against him. Thinking of that, my heart turned colder inch by inch. I should be grateful to Lucas. His commotion had finally made me give up on Sophia completely. Although it was a farce, my father had been exhausted by the ordeal. I helped him leave and paid no heed to what happened behind us. When we got home, my mother, who had just gone to our grandmother's in the countryside, rushed back in a panic. What happened? I heard Sophia's mother died. I looked at my mom and tears suddenly streamed down my face. I hugged her tightly. Margaret, I missed you so much. My mother was baffled and exchanged a look with my father, who sighed but said nothing. In my previous life, when my mother-in-law had had an accident, my grandmother back home had fallen, and I didn't tell my mother. Later at the funeral, my dad heard Lucas joking about my mom, and, unable to hold back his anger, started arguing with everyone. In the end, he suddenly had a cerebral hemorrhage and died. I was holding a fruit knife, demanding Lucas apologize, but he said it was just a joke and he didn't expect my dad to take it seriously. During the dispute, the fruit knife pierced my heart. When my mom rushed back from the countryside and learned the terrible news, she collapsed from grief and soon passed away too. Thinking of that twists my heart into a knot. The pain leaves me speechless. I silently held my mother tight and pulled my father close as well. Thankfully in this life, our whole family is still alive and well. That evening, Sophia came to our house looking deathly pale. Sophia's here. My mom didn't know what had happened at the funeral, so she politely welcomed her in, but noticed my dad's strange looks toward Sophia. What's with the two of you? My mom was puzzled, poured a glass of water for Sophia, and apologized. Sorry, Margaret has gone back to the countryside to take care of her grandmother these past couple of days and didn't make it to your mother's funeral. Margaret will go to the cemetery tomorrow to apologize to her. Hearing that, Sophia immediately looked guiltily up at my mom. She hadn't expected my mom to say that and felt even more like a jerk. Margaret, I'm sorry, she blurted out, startling my mom. Child, why are you apologizing to me for no reason? I crossed my arms and snorted coldly. Because she's guilty as a thief. My mom rolled her eyes at me in annoyance. You kid, stop talking nonsense. She patted Sophia's shoulder consolingly. But the dead can't be brought back. You should accept the grief and not overthink it. Sophia nodded heavily, glanced guiltily at me, then turned to my mom. Margaret, Ethan and I will definitely take good care of you and George's father from now on. My mom was taken aback, though she nodded. All right, I'm touched that you feel that way, Margaret. I snorted beside them, disdainful, unnecessary. I'll take care of my parents myself. My mom frowned. What are you saying, child? Why are you talking so strangely today? Usually good-natured, my dad also wore a cold face. Don't worry about those two. Let's go back to our room. He didn't even look at Sophia and went back inside holding my mom to rest. After they left, Sophia immediately tried to explain, Honey, I'm sorry. After you left today, I was busy handling my mom's funeral and only just came over. I snorted and tore off her disguise without hesitation. What were you so busy with? I'd already arranged most of the funeral. You should be busy explaining things to everyone, right? Embarrassment flickered across Sophia's face. She crouched in front of me. Honey, really, thank you for seeing my mother off. I shot back unceremoniously. What good does doing it well do? Didn't it just disturb her spirit? Who knows if, tonight, she'll go after your male best friend Lucas. All right, shouldn't you go keep Lucas company tonight? So he doesn't do anything bad and you don't have to worry about ghostly knocks at the door? At that, Sophia's face immediately turned awkward. She forced a smile at me. Honey, please don't humiliate me anymore. I sneered. Humiliate? You flatter me. I'm just speaking the truth. She knew I was angry, so she didn't try to explain further. Seeing she still didn't plan to leave, I lost patience. Why are you still here? Sophia paused. Where should I go? I'll stay here tonight. I frowned. You don't deserve to stay here. Go back. Sophia's face instantly turned awkward. Then come back with me. I couldn't help curling my lips in a cold smile. What? Afraid your mom will come looking for you if you live alone. Sophia snapped, her voice suddenly higher. Ethan, don't keep provoking me. I've already explained. What else do you want? Watching her raging and humiliated expression, I felt oddly relieved and laughed. An explanation is enough? When I explained before, what did you all say about my mom? Did you even listen to me? Her face flushed and paled in turns, and finally she ground her teeth. You can't let this go, can you? I nodded heavily. Right, I can't let it go. Let's get a divorce. She froze completely. What did you say? Divorce. Seeing her incredulous reaction, I found it amusing. Sophia, can you not look at me like that? Shouldn't you have thought of this already? Her face went in ashen, and she yelled at me. What nonsense are you talking about? When did I ever think about divorcing you? At that point, I no longer wanted to pretend. You could lie to me about a sudden business trip just to go with Lucas to Magic Park. That's unfaithful. You delayed coming back to see your mother one last time because Lucas had a high fever. That's unfilial. What use is a woman who is both unfaithful and unfilial to me? Keep her for the holidays? After hearing this, Sophia's face immediately turned ugly. Yes, that was my fault before, but I can promise you, nothing happened between Lucas and me. I sneered. Nothing has happened yet, but that doesn't mean nothing will happen later. Seeing her expression grow worse, I continued, but that has nothing to do with me. Right now, I just want a divorce. At that, my mother could no longer stay silent. Ignoring my father's objections, she rushed out. What are you two saying here? Seeing my parents come out, Sophia panicked. Margaret, my mother gave her a cold glance. We'll deal with your problems later. She pulled me into the room, locked the door, and then asked with a cold face, Are you sure about the divorce? Have you thought it through? I bit my lip. Yes, we must divorce. Hearing that, my mother relaxed. She knows I always make my own decisions. Although this is a big matter, ultimately, it must be based on my feelings. So she had pulled me in only to make sure I wasn't acting impulsively and to prevent mistakes that would be hard to fix later. Now that she was sure I really wanted a divorce, she would stand by me. That is the freedom and love my parents give me. I suddenly remembered the last life, when a joke from Lucas led to the deaths of the three of us, and I wanted to tear him apart. Don't come out of the room. Take a bath and sleep early, my mother said, soothing me before she left. I listened carefully in the room for a long time, but didn't hear any intense noises. In the end, exhausted from a day of tense nerves, I fell asleep. The next morning, I saw my mother and father return from the square, having finished their dance. I immediately rushed up and hugged them. I thought everything that happened yesterday might have been a dream, and now I realized it had all been real. Used to my sudden enthusiasm, my mother simply let me cling to her, while my father was still unaccustomed. "Is this kid a little off his rocker? Should we take him to a hospital?" he joked. My mother shot my father an annoyed look, then took my hand and led me aside. Yesterday, Margaret already spoke with Sophia. She agreed to the divorce. I was astonished. She agreed so quickly? My mom nodded. She said marital property will be split 50-50, but because you two always kept finances separate, except for the house you both paid the down payment on, everything else is yours and hers respectively. I nodded. I'm not going to take a penny from her. 3 days later, I met Sophia at the Civil Affairs Bureau. She looked much paler and more haggard than before as she got out of Lucas's car. Seeing that, I frowned slightly but said nothing. Lucas put his arm around Sophia's shoulders, but she pulled away from him. He wasn't upset and helped straighten her hair. "Go ahead. I'll wait for you here." Sophia looked at me awkwardly. He insisted on coming to see me off. I showed no expression. That's between you and him. You don't need to explain it to me." Seeing my resolute attitude, Sophia knew there was no turning back on the divorce. There's a 1-month cooling-off period for finalizing the divorce. When we came out, we saw Lucas looking enviously at a couple taking wedding photos nearby. "Sophia, let's take a set of wedding pictures here too, okay?" Sophia's face instantly fell. She nervously glanced at me, only to find I wasn't looking at them at all, my expression defeated. "Ethan, where are you going?" "We'll drive you." "No need, my parents drove to pick me up." I went down the steps. My dad had just parked at the curb. He looked at Lucas behind me and gave him a sharp look. Lucas glanced at my mom in the passenger seat, immediately looking guilty and hurriedly pulling Sophia away. "Mom, Dad, I'm completely free today. Dinner's on me. Let's have a good family meal." Seeing I was fine, my mom relaxed. "Okay, your dad will pay." My dad, who was driving, heard that and laughed foolishly. "All right." I sat in the car and watched Sophia get into Lucas's car and breathed out a long sigh. Later I heard Sophia and Lucas broke up. Lucas kept making ill-timed jokes that made it impossible for Sophia to work and live normally. His extreme possessiveness cost Sophia several projects. Everyone at their company knew she had a boyfriend who loved joking and getting jealous. Sophia's boss even screamed at her over it, telling her to leave if she couldn't win back clients. Only then did Sophia realize how much trouble Lucas's just joking, genuine act had caused her. On one hand, she drank with clients to salvage deals. On the other, she had to endure Lucas's 24/7 suffocating calls and surveillance, and in the end, couldn't stand it. At first, she thought Lucas's girlish, gentle, attentive personality was a good contrast to me, coarse and oblivious to her feelings. Now she knew Lucas had been putting that on. His need to control was frightening. I heard Sophia fought hard to break up with Lucas and even paid him several $100,000 as a breakup settlement. After that, I didn't pay much attention to their lives. Under my parents' care, I threw myself into work, quickly getting promoted. My boss introduced me to his wealthy, beautiful cousin Chloe. We dated for a while and soon met each other's parents. Her parents had no objections to my being remarried. One day, my younger girlfriend, somehow, found out about the awful things I encountered at my mother-in-law's funeral. Her eyes went red with anger. Her little mouth pouted high, and she insisted on finding someone to teach Sophia and Lucas a harsh lesson. I hurried to stop her and soothed her. If I hadn't run into them, how would I have had the chance to wait for someone as good as you? She was quickly calmed by my words and smugly smiled. That's true. Luckily, my sister introduced you to me. You're a real treasure. She threw her arms around me and kissed me recklessly. I quickly reminded her, this is a public place. But she said, what's wrong? Is kissing my own husband a crime? Sophia, trailing behind, felt as if her heart were being cut open with a blunt knife when she saw the scene. That night, she drank with a few brothers at home until dawn, repeatedly muttering, Ethan, I'm sorry, I love you. When her brother forwarded me a video of her drunk, I deleted it expressionlessly and blocked him. My girlfriend suddenly came over, mysteriously grabbed my hand. "Ethan, let's get married." She pulled a ring out from somewhere and pretended to put it on me. No. I pretended to refuse to scare her a little. The next second her face went ashen with anger. "Are you regretting it? Do you want to go back to your ex-wife?" Seeing her wronged little look, I couldn't help but kiss her. "Silly, don't you know proposals are supposed to come from the man?" Saying that, I dropped to one knee, took a ring from my pocket, and put it on her ring finger. She was overjoyed. "You brought a ring too?" I smiled. "Because you're worth me being good to for a lifetime."